And welcome back to another episode of GillyTalks. I am your host, Adam. So excited to be with you again tonight. And, I've really enjoyed so far the teacher series that I've started. And, our first two guests were from a school on the South Shore of Montreal called Heritage High School. If you need a brief summary of how Heritage came to be, they were my original school, Richelieu Valley Regional High School, also known as RVR, joined together with McDonald Cartier, where I graduated from in my option 6th year because grade 8 was fantastic. Stayed there for an extra one so I can do an extra year of basketball. That's my plan, and I'm sticking to it. And it was great. And so they've become one school, Heritage. And so thank you to Miss Nat Small and Mr. Ryan Payne, my first two guests. I'm really excited about my guests on this episode. If ever you've heard of the term light work, that is how I would describe this guest when it came to playing against him in basketball. I knew when there was a game against Saint Jean that it was going to be an easy night guarding one of their shooters, specifically this guest. All kidding aside, Erik Lagarde is my guest tonight. I first saw Erik when I went with my brother to watch a CJET basketball game. For those of you who do not live in Quebec, that's basically your grade 12 and 13. And we say that again.
And 14.
And 14, yeah. And so I went to watch the Champlain Cavaliers, right? That was the name. And I had no idea who this individual was. All I knew was whenever he hit a basket, he yelled and cheered himself on louder than anybody else in the crowd, had his mouth guard. And here's a true story. I tried it in the next game that I played in high school. I wore a mouth guard. I cheered myself on. Like, I felt like I could compete with this person and wanted to actually, shamefully to admit, be this person for a little bit, okay? Got to know him a little bit. Actually traveled to New York City with him. We stayed in the Waldorf Astoria. Imagine 4 hooligans hanging out in the Waldorf Astoria, everybody wearing like nice fancy clothes, and we are wearing jogging pants and sweatshirts. Like, that's how we rolled. But I've gotten to know him over a few years now, played basketball against him, had some good conversations outside of basketball. And so I'm excited, again, another teacher to interview tonight, Erik Lagarde. Erik, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. What'd you say the name of that show was again?
GillyTalks.
The GillyTalk. That's fantastic. What a title.
So some would call it Gilly, but, I went with the Quebec way of saying the G, right? And so we got GillyTalks. Actually, a friend of mine, his friend came up with the nickname Gilly, and it stuck with me for quite a few years now. And so I roll with it and made it my podcast. I forgot to mention, this one's going to surprise you. One of Erik's favorite movies is Keeping the Faith. Is this true, Erik?
No, no, that one. Oh, yes. Hold on a sec. I had it confused with something. That's when you have the pastor and the rabbi.
Yes, Ben Stiller, Jenna Elfman, and Edward Norton. You want to know why I know this?
Why is that?
Because I have your copy of the movie. If you're watching the video version of this in my hand is the movie, and Erik lent to me a long time ago. What's that?
You stole that.
No, well, sort of. You lent it to me because you said, Adam, you would enjoy this, basically playing the bias that I'm a pastor. And you said you would enjoy this. Let me use it. And it's been sitting in my house for years now.
At least 15.
Yeah. So that's a little fun fact. But anyways, Erik, how are you doing? How is life going for you after 15 years? I guess, like you said, it's been a long time now since we played basketball with each other. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I just finished teaching today and got a chance to go and have fun with my kids. I got a son who plays hockey, and so his Sportitude hockey's still on. So went for a little bike ride with my daughter, just did the daddy things, and now I'm sitting here with you. But the year's been good. All things aside, obviously it's been a little bit more challenging than most teaching years, but it's been an absolutely wonderful year. I just want to make a slight correction from your previous opening statements, which was an easy person to guard. I don't quite understand when you come up with that, because I remember our record against Village Idiots being something like 36-0 over the 7 years. Like, maybe one way you guys sneak out one on us. And we won the championship as well. I don't remember ever seeing you guys really go deep into the playoffs.
Well, that championship must have happened after my time. But
definitely
you guys, okay, your team couldn't even handle one of our oldest players on our team, Ed. You guys wanted to fight him every single game.
Ed's dirty. There's no other way around that. But he grew up in the old school. I get throwing the elbows around. I saw him, and I pull up for the jump shot instead of going to the rim. I get that.
True story. This is one game that I played against Erik's team, and I was playing incredible defense, guarding Erik, and I had this great technique of just keeping the hand slightly on the hip as he tried to pass me, and it prevented him from doing so. He got very upset. I got the ball off the turnover, went down the court. As we crossed half court, pretty close to tackling me. Like it was a full-out shove. That full-out shove, referee just called a plain old foul. Today, that would have been an ejection, a fine, and a court case. And so it was pretty aggressive. But that was the frustration because my defense was so skilled.
Your hands weren't as hippie after those, so that was good.
Well, we had some good times. I remember there were numerous times we began ready to play you either in the next 24 hours, and I get a random phone call. Just the only question I ever heard on the other side of the phone was, "Are you ready?" And I usually was, but it's been fun. Let me ask you this question: when it comes to basketball, greatest teammate you've played with, and why?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go with I got two of them. I got one in CJEP. His name was Eric Zulu. He was the best player on our team, and he was a star. And he was just really good at bringing everybody together. And from 1 to 14, my first year, my second year even, I struggled. I backed him up. And he was always incredibly positive. And he had such a personality that he just brought everybody together. He was humble but arrogant at the same time. It was like the perfect combination. For somebody like me, I looked up to him. I thought his game was, superb. And I always had to go up against him to try to get minutes. And there was no hate on his behalf. He was a true teammate. And the other one was Sean Craig at Bishops. He was from the Maritimes. They're just built different out there. Mm-hmm. Like when we were 6 rookies from Quebec coming onto that team, and he was the sweetest guy I'd ever met. He just finished running like 60. He was a machine, by the way. I'd never seen a motor like that before in my life. I think he got like 15 or 16 on the beep test. And he comes in from like a quick 10K jog, as he said, and we're playing pickup, and he's got running shoes on. This is the first time I meet him, and he was so sweet. Like he was just a sweet human being, but a horse in games and a horse in practice. And he kind of opened my eyes because, basketball players, it's a team sport, but you got a lot of egos. You got a lot of guys who really wanted to be just about them. And those were the two guys who were very, very good players who demonstrated the type of leadership that I wanted to emulate later on, just in life in general, that you can be humble, that you can be just compassionate, and people will follow that more so than trying to be, super tough or egotistical. Yeah. So those were the two teammates that I thought were exceptional. Now looking back on it as a basketball coach as well. Yeah.
Cool. I'm just going to make a note. Derek Armstrong, not an option. Okay.
No, not an option. Not an option. When I played with him, he was all about himself, but I'll tell him that to this day.
True story. Derek Armstrong in high school got a tattoo of a Nike logo on his shoulder, and then later had it transformed into something else. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. I still talk to him to this day. He's still one of my best friends. He's fantastic. But yeah, when he got that, he came into the gym. I'm like, "Well, you're gonna regret that in about 3 years."
Because he got that when you guys were at Centennial, right?
Yeah, when we won 5 provincial championships. Yeah.
Oh my!
Thought I'd slide that one in there.
Here we go. For anybody not from Centennial, everybody just rolled their eyes. That's really what happened. I can see Steve Green cheering right now, saying, "Yes, that's what we did."
The RPR crowd's probably cringing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's awesome. I like that. Speaking of Derek, funniest moment that I had with Derek was when we went to New York City. You, my brother, and Derek, and we went and bought 4 tickets from a scalper to watch Toronto versus the New Jersey Nets when Jason Kidd, Richard Jefferson, Vince Carter were all on the Nets. We sat 2 rows behind the Raptors bench. But funniest moment was big sign says, "Do not buy tickets from scalpers." And we did, obviously. We go and we get our tickets scanned. I go in. I believe you went in. And then it was Derek's turn. And all he heard was, and he quickly turned because he's like, I got to find this guy. My ticket doesn't work. It took a couple of tries. It finally worked. But the panic that we saw on his face in that one moment was worth the trip right there.
Oh, we would have left him right there too. Walk right in.
I wasn't missing the game. That's for sure. Cool. Well, Erik, I wanted to, as I mentioned, I've been interviewing some teachers. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that life and we'll talk about other things as we go along. But let everybody know where you teach. I know there's a few portfolios underneath you when it comes to, the attachment to schools and what you do both in sports, outside of sports, that kind of stuff. So just kind of give your portfolio of what you do as a teacher in this day and age.
So I actually went to the school before I went to Centennial. I went to St. John's High School, and this is where I teach from day one once I graduated at Bishop's. I also subbed for them in May and in June when I'd come back home for the summers. I graduated in history and English lit. I teach history and geography, environmental geography, and they always give me a group of phys ed here and there so that there isn't like a 10 or 15% contract out for a teacher that just wouldn't take it. It's located as well on the tip of the South Shore of Montreal. It's about 20 minutes away from Heritage, from St. Hubert, where you ended up going, and where the other two teachers who you interviewed, is the same school board. It's an English school board. It's an English school, in a large French community. Mm-hmm. We also have a military base there. It's a recruitment base, so basically anybody who joins the military has to spend time on that base, and so we get about 25 to 30% of our clientele are military kids, and it's pretty unique because it's an elementary school from K and actually pre-K as of next year, all the way to grade 11 to graduation.
Now, beyond that, I know you're affiliated with some more things on the side, right?
Yeah,
when it comes to sports. So go ahead and explain what you do also when it comes to the realm of sports.
Sure. So I started actually coaching there right when I was taking on two teams for like 6 or 7 years, and I kind of got passionate about coaching. And so I started coaching the city as well, because the mentality at St. John's at the time was under one of my mentors, Mike Lange, was very serious about basketball. And then when he left, he left to go do some administration. It didn't crumble, but it just became more of like an A-League sports school. So at that point, I didn't have much interest in doing that. And at the same time, I have one of my close friends, Bernard, who was coaching in the city, and he was also coaching at the CEGEP, Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu. And so I went and coached in the city, and now I've been coaching at the CEGEP. We're Division I as of last year at the CEGEP de Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu. So I'm the assistant coach there with Bernard. And we also started our own basketball school, a concentration, about 10 years ago, that we've been running through the French school board in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu. So I run that as well. And I've been doing those two things, and I've also started a little bit of private one-on-one basketball lessons as well for people who ask me for it. I really don't go out and recruit, but there's some who are really motivated, and I'm more than willing to take a couple on, but it's becoming, quite a lot to juggle. So
we have a guy here in our town, actually a Bishop's grad, just a few years ago, Jamil Abiad, who has taken off doing like basketball training. He actually just got, if I'm not mistaken, signed on to the Ottawa basketball team that just opened up here as part of their training staff. But he's gone like around the world now to do basketball camps and all kind of stuff. So there must be something happening up at Bishop's that puts the teaching into their students and basketball players.
Well, they say if you start, if you're a point guard or a two guard, you usually end up being a coach, and that's definitely been true with me. I love it. I can't see myself not doing it. It was really busy when my kids were like super young. Like, it's funny, like everything just kind of explodes all at once. And my kids are like, 1 and 3 at the time. And I'm starting a basketball school, coaching for the city, working full time. I had a very, very patient and supportive wife, who also taught at Heritage, by the way. And now teaches the same month with me. Yeah.
I should have done a double interview.
No, we don't want that.
No, you don't want that. Okay. All right. Perfect.
She never shined me. So no.
So where did the desire to teach come from? So like, obviously, like you said, like there's something about, the point guards or even the shooting guards. There is that, coaching ability inside of them, and teaching and coaching. There's a lot of similarity, a lot of things that kind of coexist there when it comes to being a teacher or a coach. So for you, where did that teaching desire come from? And did you when you said like, I want to be a teacher, this is it? Or was it kind of a gradual process to get to, I want to be a teacher?
I think that, I'm going to be honest. Like I looked at the lifestyle of being a student and it's always suited me. And so I'm like, what can I do for the rest of my life where I can chill at Christmas, enjoy playing some golf in the summer and just like vacay a little bit. And that lifestyle, I love it. And it gives me the opportunity to do so many other things as well. I was in like my last year at BU and I'm like, I got a history degree and an English lit degree. What in the hell do I do with this? And so I had a roommate of mine at the time, Erik Lagarde, and he was like writing his LSATs. And I'm like, let me just, like, I don't know, I'll take a practice sesh with him. And I quickly found out that like 3 or 4 more years of law school was not going to work for my dad. He's like, you're cut off. And I'm like, okay. He's like, you got 1 more year, so figure it out. And then so in order to get into education and bishops, you need to have an educational studies minor, which I had done. So it was in the back of my mind. And so I just went for it. I liked it when I was in the classroom. I won't lie. I didn't really enjoy the theoretical components of the B.Ed degree. I think there's a lot of fluff in there. I think they got to fill that academic calendar for students. And, you could do away with a few courses that they're giving and probably give them more time in schools because, there is a 25% dropout rate in the first 5 years for teachers that come into teaching. Because it is really hectic. It is really difficult. I got a lot of friends in the business world and they're like, oh, you don't have deadlines to meet. And I'm like, you're right. We don't. Like, we don't have the same stressors and pressures, but it will take your energy in a life and suck it right out of you. And so if you're passionate about it, if you love it, which I do, I absolutely love teaching, but I won't lie, for the first 5 years that I questioned, I had other job opportunities in other domains that, it really could have went in a different direction. I'm glad that it didn't because I love what I do now. But that's kind of so I kind of just milked into it. Like it wasn't a firm, concrete desire. I was like crushed that I wasn't going to be a basketball player the rest of my life. And when I look around now, I'm like, okay, 5'11", 160 pounds soaking wet at the time. I'm like, I get it. I was passed on a couple times, So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Kind of just fell into it like that.
Yeah. Now, obviously this past year has been a gong show, right? It's been maybe not for you, but for the world. Because we all know that even though everybody else is struggling, Erik's coasting through life. He's doing great. Okay. So, but there obviously has been some challenges. I know, sitting next to my kids for 4 weeks in January was not fun. Not because I was sitting next to my kids, but because I'm having to, listen to how teachers are trying to cope with online technology and trying to figure out how to, direct this and, especially for younger kids, Madame, can I go to the bathroom? Yes, you can go to the bath. Like it was just absolutely crazy. So for you, when everything kind of changed last year, what's been the biggest hurdle for you and how have you adapted to the change?
I'll start with how I adapted to the change. Like, if you're not adapting, like I call like on an every 3 to 5 year basis in teaching, you're going to fall behind. Kids are changing too quickly, and not for good or for bad. They're just different. They're built different. Their interests are different. What they do is different, and so I've always, I kind of like that because it keeps you young at the same time. If you're willing to take that dive with these. I teach teenagers, right? I teach so that's grade 8 and grade 9 mostly. I used to teach some grade 11, but apparently when you're 25 and they're 17, 18, that's not always a good idea because my maturity level definitely wasn't there at the beginning. So I'm like, you got to ship me out of this. I'm doing some younger kids. But getting back to COVID, the biggest hurdle I think is ensuring that you're doing good on your students. And so, we're told to be lenient. We're told to be patient and not necessarily be as rigid as we once were. Teach them the essentials. Don't necessarily go as far deep into the details. And I couldn't agree with you more, but sometimes like you're kind of saying to yourself, and I teach, so my kids, by the way, my students outside of a couple cases of COVID in the classroom have always been in the building. Now they're wearing that mask. They're not moving around. I take them outside sometimes the last 15 minutes and we go for a walk. Like anytime I can, Or if the gym's free, I'll say, hey, let's go downstairs. We'll go to the gym, because they're not moving. It's crazy, but just walking during recess from one side of the building to the other, they don't even get that. So the biggest hurdle for me is like trying to recognize, when am I being too lenient? And to the point where, okay, well, they're not learning enough, or they're not picking up enough good habits, or you're giving them too much leeway now that because they're young, and you give them that loose and they'll take it. And so that's been a bit of a challenge for me, but you just have conversations with them about it and what they're capable of. And it also, each home though, it's insane how different it is in each house. So if you don't have that perspective and you're just going about your classroom in a uniform way, you're doing a disservice to, I'd say, at least a good 25 to 50% of them, because you have just no clue. Some parents lost their jobs. Some of them, the divorce rate through this COVID is climbing, and the mental issues that are going on with some of these kids, and rightfully so. Like, I may be well, but I have friends and colleagues and who are not, and so if they're not, guaranteed, these teens are going through that as well.
Well, then let me ask you, since you talked about that, have you seen some kids who before COVID were one way and their behavior changed during this process because of that very thing, dealing with, hey, we can't even go like outside as often, or we can't do this, or we got to walk, in this manner and wear a mask all day? Have you seen the behaviors change from students?
I'd say that they've been like, I'm at a small school, so realize I got 275 in the whole building in high school. So it's very different. Every kid, like I teach grade 8, I teach every single grade 8 kid, and like half of the grade 7s and some of the grade 9s. So I know all of them in the building. Mm-hmm. And so I've noticed that I feel terrible for any high school kid who's graduating this year. What an awful year to be closing this out with. Now we'll see what happens in June, but some of them, sorry about that. Some of them are really struggling with this. Some of them are depressed. Some of them need help, and I'll reach out if I see it, but I mean, I got over 140 students in the building sometimes that I teach. So it becomes a little difficult, but I definitely make myself available. And you know what, if anything, like a lot of them have become a lot more communication savvy with Teams and with Zooms. And so I have more back and forth off school hours with students just in messaging and Teams, which I think is healthy for them. And, it doesn't bother me at all.
So have you heard of, or have you noticed schools making a conscious effort to help students with the mental health? Has that been a subject that teachers, administration have said, hey, we should put this in place to help kids who are going through these things?
Yeah, absolutely. So our admin, Ms. Lozier and Mr. McGinnis, they're awesome. They get ahead of it, and which helps. And we're very much a teacher-led school as well, because we're 25 staff. And so like I help admin sometimes. If one of them's sick, I'll be the administrator for the day, or somewhere my colleague will. And therefore, like we're a bit of a family at St. John's. A lot of the teachers that are there have been there for 10, 15, 20 years plus. And so it's easier for us to identify these kids when they are struggling. And we do have people in place who can help them.
Mm-hmm. Now, is that a school by school, or does your school board ever implement stuff like that?
School board, yeah, the school board will implement things as well, but I don't necessarily, like, the school board's huge, like in terms of what their responsibility is. So my go-to is never necessarily to somebody at the board. My go-to will be, like, I know the people in my building, I know what they do, and if they can't handle it, then I know they go to the board.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. I know that's been the talk from a lot of people that, mental health they've seen. I have some friends who, police officers, RCMP officers. And I remember talking to one of my buddies who's an RCMP officer, and we play softball together. And I said, how are things going? This is last summer. And he said, man, like just the mental health cases through the roof, and it was just, trying to adapt and to, get a sense of how do we now operate in this kind of culture, whereas before you had people who were going through things, but just the increase in numbers of that was just a whole other level for people to deal with. And so I can only imagine in schools where, students already are, from compared to when we were in school, are already different, right? In a sense, like technology is up here, phones.
You say it, they're less active.
Yeah, well, it's true, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that leads me to my question about sports. Actually, during all of this, do you think that because of this, that there will be less in 5-10 years down the road, less students who are pursuing sports because there's been this halt for a lot of people in the sports realm?
That's a great question. I can't wait to see the result. I don't know. Like will some people miss it and say, I want to go back to it? Will other people kind of say to themselves, I found another interest now? That's a great question. I'll give you an example though, like just in adults, and golf last summer was its biggest summer in 20 years worldwide.
Yeah.
So immediately people realized I can't do anything, but I can do that. And so they went back to it and they drove back to it. I think people are starting to crave physical activity.
Yeah.
And, I could ask you that question as well. Like, how physically active are you, your family, your friends? And to me, that's what saves. I've never stopped that. I've never quit being active. And I think that, and I tell everybody, if you're having mental health issues, like go get help, but help yourself. And just an hour, like just taking walks. Like I can't believe I do this, Adam. How old are we? I take walks.
I did today.
I got to get my 3 clicks in every day. Like that's regardless if I work out or not. And it helps. I listen to pods and maybe this one now.
You should subscribe to GillyTalks. Make sure you say it right. GillyTalks.
GillyTalks.
It's true though. Like, so, full disclosure, like I really struggled towards the end of last year, like really struggled. Like what I do for a living.
Like when that came about?
Say it again.
Like when November, December kind of thing?
Yeah, a bit before that, even like I hit a wall. Like starting with COVID, I was feeling good because I talk for a living, right? I go places to speak on a regular basis, and now I can't do that. It was very difficult. So I was actually at one point speaking 3 times a week on Zoom calls to groups, tuning in from somewhere else. But then that stopped, and it's like, okay, like I'm not doing that anymore. And I just hit this wall where I was staying up super late because I couldn't go to sleep, but still waking up early in the morning, exhausted, falling asleep during the day. Like I was tired. I got to my heaviest weight. I had lost weight and then got to my heaviest weight, 255. That's where I was at.
Whoa.
Right now you're looking at 230 now. Right.
Good.
So since Christmas, I've lost 25 pounds.
Okay.
So walking, changing how I eat, trying to sleep better, although March Madness has been on, so that's kind of hurt things.
No, March is like, it doesn't count.
Yeah, it's a write-off.
Blow it away.
I've had to make changes, but I noticed once I started the walks, once I started running, once I got a treadmill in the basement, once I started doing those things, I started to feel better, less sleeping during the day, like it was just a completely different habit. So I agree, like the activity side of things is so crucial to that health that and here's the thing, they're not paying for this podcast, but Apple, I have an Apple Watch, and the truth is seeing my rings close on my Apple Watch has completely transformed. And they actually came out with an Apple Fitness program that I looked into, and they have a whole treadmill workout, like different, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And I got hooked, and that's what kept me going, and the motivation beside that. And so like now even, it'll be like 10 o'clock at night and my exercise ring isn't closed, which is like at least 30 minutes of exercise a day. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go walk on the treadmill, or I'm going to go outside for the walk. And every day since before Christmas, I've closed all 3 of my rings every single time because I'm motivated. I feel better. I have 4 kids. I need to be,
we'll talk about that on another segment.
I need to be awake, and active, so it's, I'm happy that, but again, like not everybody has, the capability at this time because they're so, I don't want to say so far gone, but so discouraged and so, down, and that lack of hope even has prevented them from being active, and they're spiraling out of control. And I know that there's more to mental health than just being healthy, but it's a very big component to us being healthy.
And so is nutrition. Like you nailed it right there. Like before, I didn't understand people who didn't move. Because I have a motor that needs to kind of just buzz. It's not like my family hates me. And so And eating right. My wife taught me how to eat right. When you're when you're 25, you're shooting hoops in university, man. I live off Fruit Loops and like Nutella and white bread, and like I do that, it's game over. But yeah, I think if you're eating better, if you're eating your greens, if you're moving, and everybody's like, okay, but you love sports. It doesn't have to be sport. Like you just said, it could be a walk. It could just be playing with your kids. Like just move, just sweat every day, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll move on from this in a second, but one of my favorite communicators, he's actually from like the GTA, Brett Ullman. If you ever want a guy who talks about mental health stuff, he talks about whole other subjects, but mental health is one of the subjects that's really, he talks about Brett Ullman. And he does school talks, was a teacher before, has written so many books on parenting, on dating, everything, right? But mental health, and he talked about it actually before Christmas. I watched one of his YouTube videos, and he talked about just going out for a walk every day, and he talked about the benefits of just adding a walk to your life. Try it every day for a month. And that's kind of one of the things that got me started, and so thankful for it. But honestly, that Brett Ullman, by the way, if ever you're looking for resources, his website, all of this talks that he does, he plugs in resources onto his website. He has a faith background, but doesn't only speak with the faith component in his talks, but has incredible material for anybody out there who wants material on that stuff. Brett Ullman is one of those guys. So here's a question I have for you. You're talking about when you first wanted to become a teacher. I love my summers off. I want my Christmas holidays. My specific question is, what would you want parents to know that maybe they don't know about teachers, right? That would maybe make being a teacher easier because parents understood this or whatnot, but let's help eliminate the myth that, hey, teachers shouldn't complain, they have a summer off.
Yeah, trust me, we need the battery to be recharged. I think if I were to tell parents, we don't want to call home because we got nothing better to do. If we're calling you, if we're communicating with you, it's really because we're concerned. And I think sometimes, I get it. Like when I got 2 kids, and if a teacher starts talking to me about my kids, I'm like, but then I just think back and I say, I never reach out to a parent unless I really have to. And when I do, it's because I want your support. I want us to work together. And so at times that could be a little bit difficult. When I was younger, I really didn't know how to communicate that well. Mm-hmm. And so, and that's the other thing that sometimes, parents don't understand is you have teachers who are like 27 and they're just starting. And then you have some who are at the end of their career in the middle. And so the way in which the message gets sent across may at times be, not the way you want to hear it. But I think that if they're talking to you, they care about your kids. They want your kids to succeed. And so take away the myth that back us up is basically what we're saying. Yeah. Question us. Yeah. But back us up a little bit here. We don't want to go against you. We're not calling, because if not, what happens is the teachers will just say, okay, well, I'll communicate, your kid's grades, but it ends there. And so you're going to lose a teacher who really does care about students. And that's not what you want. And on top of that, like, administrators don't have time to come around and tap us on the back, tell us what a good job we're doing. The salary doesn't tap us on the back and tell us what a good job we're doing either. And so, but when we feel that sense of community, when we feel the parents are on board with things like this, it really does, it really does give us an extra gear. When I hear from a former student, when they write me on Messenger and they give me some positive feedback, man, that can gear me up for another 2 weeks, or another month even. So
have you ever had a phone call with a parent? And if it's too sensitive of a question, you don't have to answer it, but you phone call a parent, you talk to them, hey, here's a concern I have. And really because one, the kid's capable, right? Mm-hmm. And you actually believe in them, but you hang up the phone with that parent and you're like, he's getting no support or she's getting no support at home. And if so, does that affect how you teach that individual?
So it's funny because, you set up a couple questions for me that you were going to ask. So I may not get into it right now, but absolutely. When I meet my parent teacher interview, I'm like, oh, Okay, wow,
Yeah.
you get in the building every day. That's amazing, And then and then the mind shifts. And then other times you have parents who are exceptional for their kids. But the majority of them like to think that their priority is their children, which I think in their heart it is.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of the world in which we live, where both partners are working, like how much time is actually left? How much time do you have for your family after? Which was also, by the way, another reason why I loved this job. I get home. I'm not getting home at like 5 or 6 all the time. Sometimes I get home earlier than that. I get to spend quality time with my kids. And I noticed that. And I noticed the fact why my kids succeed in schools. Because first of all, both my wife and I are teachers. So we get it. We know what they need to do to accomplish, but we have the time. Most of my friends, I'd say 3/4 of my friends, they love their kids. They care about their kids. But their kid cannot be their priority the way they want it to be with their job requirements. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes when I do leave a phone call or a parent-teacher interview, I realize that, and it's not that the parents don't care, it's that, man, what is it? It's 24 hours a day, you got to sleep for at least 6. And so, and some parents work nights, and in Quebec, like 50% of couples are divorced. Yeah. And so it's a lot, like half my kids in each class, half my students, I've been using kids, wrong students. They're split up. Like how many times I say, okay, where's your stuff? Oh, it's at my dad's. I was there for the weekend. I forgot it there. Yeah. So they're not living the life that I lived. They're not living the life that we lived. And so you have to be compassionate about that.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you one of the questions that I did kind of share that I was going to ask you. And that is when becoming a teacher, because you see how you teach, and I don't know, for any good teacher, selfishly, they won't say this, but you want to be liked by your students. You want to be appreciated by your students. You want them years down the road to say, man, Erik was a great teacher, right? Was there a teacher for you that inspired you, and maybe so much so that it caused you to go the route that you went as a teacher? Was there a teacher that you look back on, you're like, that teacher spoke to me?
Yeah, absolutely. There was this man, Mike Lange. He was my basketball coach, and he was my phys ed teacher at St. John's. I still talk to him this day. We went for a walk together last week. And oddly enough, his son teaches with me. He's like, our offices are right next to each other, so it's perfect. He was amazing. I take a lot of what he did as well, and I use it along with other teachers, that I work with today. But so basically, he coached me in basketball. He opened the gyms for me whenever I wanted. When I played for Centennial, he lived near there. I slept on his couch when I had late practice or when I had early practice the next day. He was compassionate. He was firm, though. He was firm and he was fair. And so I think sometimes the mistake that rookie teachers come in and make, or not even just rookie, I shouldn't say that, but like younger teachers or they want the kids to like them. To be quite honest, I don't care if they like me or not. I could care less. My job is there to make sure that they learn, to make sure that they're ready, and I'm fair. I'm what Mike taught me to be in that sense. Be fair, be compassionate, have some good energy. I got a smile on my face when I teach, and I got a frown when I'm disappointed in them. But don't shift that. Don't do something that's not in your set of priorities because you want a student to gravitate towards you or to like you. I think that's selfish, and you shouldn't do that. You're not doing them a favor. You're not doing yourself a favor either.
Yeah. So in your time, how long have you been teaching now? I think you said
this is my 17th year.
17. So in 17 years, because we obviously, when you come in as a teacher, you come in with preconceived ideas, and this is what's going to happen. This is how I'm going to do this. And we kind of, have an expectation. I've worked with students, not in a teacher role in a school, but I've worked with students and been around a lot of kids, and you do come in with an expectation, but as time goes, like in life, we learn things.
Right.
What's the greatest thing that teaching has taught you?
The kids can surprise you.
Yeah.
Kids can really surprise you. Like students can. I've had a couple students where I'm just like, man, this one's smarter than me. He's not wiser. She's not wiser, but like scary smart. So that's a real treat. When you have that and you can hone in on that and you know how to challenge that kind of student, that's a lot of fun. I've really been blessed. Like St. John's, anybody who's been there for 5 years and up, it's kind of strange when you start there as a new teacher. You're not a part of the family yet with students, and then the longer you stay there, your reputation gets built because the elementary kids see you as they come up.
True.
And so once you've been there for 5, 6, 7 years, like you really feel like you're part of this nucleus, and it's amazing. And I would never want to switch to a big schools. I think big schools are tough. I think teachers who teach at big schools should definitely get a little bonus at the end. And same with elementary school teachers, by the way. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I couldn't be a kid.
Like I look at my kids, they're like, why is it you walk down the halls, you say hi to us, and like you frown? I'm like, because I don't think I like young children.
I know, it's the same.
So it's too much. It's too much. Like their problems are too much, and you can't even reason with them sometimes. But so I find the kids can surprise. I find that things can also break your heart, though. Mm-hmm. I forget what your question was exactly, but to the point of being surprised, it's sadly. What's also tough is you see your colleagues and you see that some of them don't like it. And you see it's not their calling, but whether they're 10 years in or 20 years in, it's tough to get another job and everybody's got to put, food on the table. So that's tough when you see that. So you try to support them, you try to help them and be better teachers and just enjoy their time there because, it's like when you go through family issues, if your spouse isn't feeling well, like it's damp, it's not the same atmosphere in the house. So when one of your kids is going through something, teaching can be the same way in the sense that if you have staff members that they're struggling, everybody struggles in that sense because we are such a small school.
Awesome. No, that's good. Well, before I go on to my next question, just a quick commercial announcement. You've heard Erik and I talk tonight about sports, our love for sports, and one of the charities that I actually help out is a charity called Their Opportunity. Their Opportunity is an incredible organization that works here in Canada. And it helps underserviced families get their kids into sports and recreation. And I'm so impressed by the work that they do, the programs they build, the kids they've helped get into sports. One of the great things about their program is that any kid who goes through their programs also does a give back piece into their community. You have to give back at least an hour of community service. And it's just incredible, the stories that they have seen, and especially during COVID, they've done some incredible work. So if you want to help change a kid's life and impact communities, I'm going to encourage you, if you're listening to this, to text TheirOpp, TheirOpp, TheirOpp to 41010. That's TheirOpp to 41010, and you can make a quick donation to help them help more kids. And when you do that, you help communities become better communities. And I hope that's what you would want for your community. So that's theiropportunity.com if you want to check them out and all the work that they're doing. So Erik, I know, some of the questions that we've gone through, you've let me know about what it's like right now during COVID. You've let me know who's kind of inspired you and some of the things that you've learned as a teacher. One of the questions that's kind of been coming to my head while we've been talking is, if you could put on the greatest need for schools, but when you talk specifically about your school, what's the greatest need for schools today, on an administration side of things, but also like to better impact students?
Well, that's a good one. You didn't have that one on the list.
And I know money would be one of those things, right? But I've talked to people and because for me, I love, if I could go back to high school, I would. I'm being honest. If you told me, hey, Adam, it's COVID and you're not going to be able to play basketball this year, but next year there's basketball, I would probably have chosen, hey, Mom, can I fail grade 11 instead so I could play basketball one more year? But I want to help high schools. And even though I'm just hosting a podcast, there's potentially a way that we can do that. And so I would love to know, what is a need that can be met by people who aren't in your school that your students need, whether it's, an individual, whether it's a room in their school, like something. What is the greatest need that students have?
So here's the thing I believe that would push things along. Like education, it's government, it's bureaucracy. It takes forever to implement anything. I've been on committees sometimes for 2-3 years, and it was just like, putting pen to paper and it ended there, So I think that's, And, you could blame it on whoever you want to blame it. But the problem is that administrators, like my admin, so basically there's a VP for the high school, there's the principal, and there's the VP for the elementary. They're busy putting out fires all day. That's got to be like, and I know this because when they're out of the building and they need someone, I've done it historically in the past. And so I was like, oh my God, when can they hit that dossier up, or when can they do that? Because by the time I was done a day, they had to call 5 parents back and, have that conversation, or email 5 parents. They'd probably get like 50 emails a day on top of that. So I think the biggest problem with schools is getting them to progress to where they should be, to evolve to where they should be towards what their clientele demands. And so because of that, administratively speaking, first of all, like, the salary is not motivating to go into that. Anybody doing administration in a business probably makes 1.5 times more to 2 times more than what they're making. And so I think that you need to take resources that you've used up either at a school board level or at a government level and, replenish it into the schools, not necessarily maybe to pay them more, but to hire somebody else that's also an admin. So somebody who puts out fires all day, and somebody who gets dossiers and gets them moving. So if you do have, for example, an after-school program that you want to have for kids that need, help in math, like a math tutoring program, well, an admin can take care of that. Because right now, a lot of times, through no fault of their own, teachers volunteer for that. And so, just for example, we haven't had a contract in a year and a half here in Quebec, and what we're demanding salary-wise is close to being met, but we're trying to get other things, and it's just not functioning. It's like I feel like the money that's being used is not being used correctly. And if we could, now we have more technicians in my classroom, so that's fantastic. That helps kids who do need the extra help. But I still feel like our admin are kind of left out to dry a little bit. Like, their job's impossible to do the way you would want it to be done. They need somebody to help them take care of either the dossiers or the day-to-day. There's not enough of them in the building. Like, I'll give you an example. Centennial, for example, which is like Heritage School. We could even look at Heritage if you like. Centennial has 2 VPs. They're in charge of 500 students each.
Wow.
You tell me how they're supposed to then say, okay, we want to put this into place. When do they have time for that? So, and then everybody kind of expects them, well, you make more than a teacher, or whatever the salary ups are when you get there. And so therefore you have to work like these insane amount of hours that just don't translate if you're in the private domain. And so we have to increase what I believe, if you want the talent to come back into government, there has to be a salary that matches that. And there has to be a structure that allows them to do their job entirely, and not like just be putting out fires and then, burning out in April and having nothing left in the gas tank. So I feel terrible for them. So which is why, like, when I can help, I help. If I have the time, I'll help. That's the biggest problem I find.
No, that's good. I do have one important question left that I want to get to in a second. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation. I know that, the times over the past few years that we've had a chance to even have a conversation, I've always enjoyed our talks, and, we banter back and forth, but genuinely respect you and what you do. And I know as a young 20-year-old, for me, when I was a young 20-year-old, I knew that even though, like, you were my brother's friend, it was no problem for me to give you a phone call, and we had some good conversations, and so I'm thankful for that. But here's the one question that I love to ask my guests, because I feel like, I've asked this question. I'll say this: I've asked this question to students, but in a different manner. I've asked them the question, "Hey, if you could ask future you about life, what would you ask?" And it breaks my heart sometimes to hear some of the answers. Like, they ask the question, "Am I happy?"
Right.
Right. It's interesting. Like, I would have asked, like, "Am I rich?" Was she really attractive? I want to know those things. But kids today are asking, like, "Am I happy?"
Yeah.
So the question I've been asking those outside of high school, and that I'm going to ask you tonight, is this, because I'm curious to know what you would say to high school Erik about life. Beyond the hitting threes, beyond the 5 provincial championships, like, beyond those things, what would you tell high school Erik about life?
So maybe I changed his courses. I had a great upbringing. Like I had a good family. My parents were so supportive in everything I did. You were talking about like who were some of your role models. I jumped to education, but my mom and my dad were gems. They were loving, they were caring, and they also knew like when to let me go do my own thing as well, and when to learn about life on my own. But I'd tell high schooler, take math more seriously. Just because you don't like it, you think you'll never lead it. It's insane how many like career blocking opportunities if you don't have specific math levels.
Wow.
They're gone for you. I'd also tell them broaden your interests. Like just like you, I was obsessed with basketball.
Yeah.
Like it took up every waking hour, which is like amazing because it's given me what I have now. But it took me a long time to branch my interests out. And when you stop playing, like when I know your career ended in high school, but for some of us that played a little further, when that comes to an end, like depression sinks in quick. It's what you identify with. And so obviously then I transitioned into coaching or whatnot. So, but to broaden my interests, like I love music now. I read a lot now. I want to travel. I did travel pre-COVID. And not necessarily just luxury traveling, but just seeing how other people live and learning about other cultures and stuff like that. I was so innocent and ignorant back then. I would have wanted that. And maybe be a little bit more humble. I wasn't arrogant.
You weren't?
Yeah. I know. Wow. I get it now. It's like I had to overcompensate for my scrawniness. And so that's one thing I would definitely, humble, keep your head down a little bit more. Don't pump the chest out so much. And you know what? Listen and ask questions. I had a big mouth. I did. I'll admit to it. My son does too. Adam, it's so frustrating. You see all the faults in your children that were once yours. And so like every time I'm like, would you just listen and take a break for a second? But he's a lot sweeter than I was. He's so sweet, and so he's got that. I wasn't as sweet. It took me a while to get like that. But anyways, that's what I would tell young Erik, young high school Erik. Take math more seriously. Broaden your interests. Keep your head down a little bit more. And oh, sorry, I forgot to do this. Travel after university. Don't jump into the job market right away. Yeah, I have a lot of like kids who I've taught who are going into teaching now or who are graduated. And you know what's funny about this new generation? A lot of them don't care about money.
Yeah.
They really don't. Like they're doing what they love and they'll find the money to do it. But they don't they're not thinking, I got to save, I got to get a house. I got to drive this car. So anyways, the people that I've kind of interacted with or kept in touch with, like, so I don't know. I think that the younger generations, like the 20s and 30-year-olds, I think they kind of got something that we didn't. I don't know about you, but I was kind of drilled that go to school, get a job, start a family. They seem to have, the joy for life as their number one priority, and money will come along the way. But that joy for life, that's not being, mind you, none of them have children, but like they seem to do it a little bit more balanced than our generation.
Well, true story. My mom told me when I was out of high school, she said, Adam, you will never get a job just sitting on the couch doing nothing. Now, I kid you not, 100% true story. One day, shortly after that statement, my phone rang while I was sitting on my couch. And this individual said, hey, this is so-and-so. I'm from your church. I was wondering if you wanted to come work for my company. I'm like, Mom, I got a job while sitting on the couch. Like, this is absolutely incredible.
Last time I take your advice, Mom. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm done with it. No, that's good. Now, okay, I appreciate your answer. Like, I agree. Like, there's so many things that I wish that I had thought of differently. And I traveled later in life. And, thanks to my job, I've been to places like El Salvador. I've been to Thailand. I've done some pretty cool things in different parts of the world.
Like trumps any.
Yeah. 2 summers ago, I went and worked up in Utah, in Monument Valley, Utah. I don't know if you can still hear me. I know on my screen you're frozen. but Monument Valley, Utah. And I went there to speak. I was speaking this whole week, but at the same time, every kid who was there, they came from different parts of America. And out in Monument Valley, it's where they filmed Back to the Future 3. It's where they, the desert, and they filmed one of the scenes from Indiana Jones where the snake came through the cave and all that kind of stuff. Like it was in the middle of nowhere, Monument Valley, and we went there and we helped families who couldn't on this reserve to build up their house again. And, I remember this one individual who was living in a wheelchair basically. And so the students that came helped build a ramp, for them at their house and all that kind of stuff. And so the experience I've had traveling and the things that I've done, I'm so incredibly thankful for, because it's allowed me to explore, around our world, but two, it's allowed me to have my eyes open to different people and different experiences and different cultures, that I never would have had just traveling to Oshawa for vacation. That's Oshawa? Usually where we went to Whitby, so it's pretty much the same place, but that's where we used to go because my aunt lives there. And so we'd go visit her there. But I agree, like those kind of experiences, I've been on cruises now since being married and everything. And so I'm super thankful for the places that I've gone and, those moments. So I would agree, we want to rush into those things, or I know we as a generation, we're kind of told get that job, right?
That's right.
And so I'm thankful for my experiences now, but I do wish I experienced a bit of them earlier on in my lifetime.
So can I ask you a question then?
Sure.
So during your travels to say El Salvador and Thailand and places that, aren't traditionally North American lifestyle, what's the one thing that you've noticed about the people?
I would say very giving. It's here, oftentimes our mindset is, let me gather all this stuff. This is mine. This is mine. This is mine. Out there is, oh, you need that? Here you go.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Let me, and it truly is a community feel. I know there's still cultures in our society here who still support people in their communities. I get that.
Sure.
But in those places, they have to rely on other people in their community, and they truly are tight-knit communities. And they don't live I live on top of my other neighbors, right? That's how close our houses are. There, that's not the case, but you would think that they were, how well they know each person in their community. They know who they are, and there's a huge support system in those communities. Now, they don't have a lot in a lot of places that I traveled to, but you still see that willing to sacrifice for one another, that willing to when I was in El Salvador, we did a lot of street ministry stuff where we went into some pretty tough neighborhoods, neighborhoods where they say hey, here's the curfew because good things don't happen after this curfew.
Right.
Hey, if we tell you to get on the bus because there's some bad things happening. I remember some of the areas that we did some stuff, they had the MS-13 gangs, right, in that neighborhood. We were allowed there because the gangs gave us permission to do what we did. Right. And I remember we went to do one of our days, and there was a meeting of the gangs just down the street. And the guy running our stuff, he said to us, okay, you being me and somebody else, you're going to come with me while we go door to door to bring the kids to the program and all that kind of stuff. And you want to know okay, you have this preconceived idea of what these gang members are like, right, but for a lot of them, they don't want their kids to live the life that they're living. Right. They don't want their kids to experience that. And so for them, again, it's a community thing where it's we're going to do whatever it takes to get our kids out of what we're in.
Right.
Right. And it's a very sacrificial lifestyle. And we may not agree with everything that happens, but for a lot of them, this is a means to us getting our kids out of this.
And I think it's very easy to judge that when you come from a place of privilege too, right?
Yeah. From over here, it's easy to judge that.
Yeah.
If you're sitting in North America here and just to be told what they do wrong, you have that preconceived idea. But it's like being a high school teacher. It's tell high school kids to do this, but once you're in the classroom and you're teaching them and you're going day to day with them, there's a totally different appreciation for the struggles, for the success, for the things that they have to go through just to get through high school, right? And so that's what I would say is that community feel is very, very obvious when you go to those types of places.
So in a sense, I mean, although you're not a high school teacher, you're definitely in a position of leadership in terms of what you do. What do you feel is your greatest strength as a leader? Like, what do you do well and what do you need to work on, you feel, either to attract more people to what you're doing or just to solidify your job and to be better at it?
Yeah, well, first, I just want to say thank you for bringing me to the Erik Lagarde podcast, and it's great to be here. But no, seriously, I think one of my greatest assets, and I use the word greatest, obviously to far-reaching, but I do feel that I'm the type of person who has the ability to look beyond what's there on the surface and give somebody the benefit of the doubt, which I think allows me, because I do have a passion for anybody, but for high school students specifically to quote the famous, quotes from the back in the day, like, be all that they can be, right? I want people to experience life to the fullest. And I know what that means for me. Right. I know, my faith motivates that. My relationships are motivated by that. So I know what that means for me, but that might mean something different for somebody else. And I want to help students get to that. Right. And I know that the journey to that is not easy. I know the road is bumpy. I know that there are difficulties, there's challenges, there's sad moments, there's high moments. I know that we were never meant to be treated off our past, right? And so for me, a student who comes to me and people might say to them, well, they've done this, and this. And for me, it's what can they do, right? And so being able to see past the mistakes they've made and to see towards the success they can have, I think is an asset for me, right? Being able to have a one-on-one conversation. And, it's easy for me, being the middle child of my family, to draw the attention. I could be loud, I could be funny, I can do dumb things to get attention. But I do think what allows me to have the conversations with even friends that I grew up with, right? That I may have done things different than them, but we were still able to connect because there was, for me, ability to just be there in the moment and have a conversation and not try and put other things into that conversation. Just me, you, let's have a talk, right? So I think that's where my strengths come into play. I think my weaknesses that I need to work on, I would say, is, what I've noticed over this past year is my ability to say no has to be better.
Yeah.
Because I said yes to a lot of things. Why? Because one, I feel like I could do those things. Two, I want other people's projects to be good. Right. So sure, I'll help you. No problem. And then partway through, you're like, oh, why did I say yes to that? Yeah. And then it adds the stress, it adds the frustration. So that would be a big thing. Of course, obviously opportunities are a big thing that I need to be able to do the things that I do, but hey, there's people everywhere. And so even a podcast like this, for me, it's about educating. For me, it's about meeting people where they're at in life. And like, I love stories. I love being a storyteller. That's why I love public speaking. I love being a motivational speaker. And when I was a pastor, I love being a preacher. But I love people's stories. And so I want to know who Erik is. I want to know who that kid in grade 11 is. And I want to know what he's been through, how he got through it. Right. Or how he's going to, I love those stories. And it's the main purpose behind GillyTalks is for people to share their stories, because there may be somebody who goes through something and shares their story on this podcast, and somebody else who's going through that exact same thing, but had no idea how to process it. And now they've just heard somebody who's gone through it and come out strong on the other side of like, I can do that. Right. That's right. And that's what I want to do. I want to be that person who brings hope and brings encouragement to people at the best that I can. So
it's kind of funny though, when you say yes to a lot of things, I've noticed, like I was just hearing you speak, is that I do the same thing. Like I'm trying to help out another basketball program that wants to get their wings going up in our town. And I say, yes, yes, yes. But what I find that I do is I end up saying no to my family a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just look back on my list of priorities. Like I like to write things down just to make sure I get them done. And then I notice, okay, no, later, honey, I'll play with you, tomorrow or something like that. It's like you can always push back the people who love you the most because they'll understand. But I'd hate to turn around at the age of like 50 when my kids are all grown up and saying, man, I wish I just spent more time with them. So saying no to those outside projects means that you're probably saying yes to your kids. And what were you thinking before, by the way? I'm curious. Like,
really wanted to.
Did you have 2 girls at first?
3 girls at first.
So you were just like, I need another man in the house?
100%. But if I had a 4th girl, I was stopping.
I was stopping. After that 3rd one, I was just like, okay, that's, you know what? I'm already unhappy. So like, I don't even think a boy can save this shit.
Well, it's true. Like I knew I was done after that 4th one. And specifically, their mom was like, yeah, it's not happening ever again. But
how old are they?
11, 9, 6, and 3, turning 4, everybody's going up in age this year.
Okay. Wow, that is action packed.
Yes, it's
and
pretty
so
busy.
Right now, when you do these Gilly Talks, what's going on? Did you lock them in a room somewhere? Your wife's on the call? Is that it?
She's with them in the basement. I have one standing behind the computer watching me right now because they all want to get into the kitchen over here. But it's all good. It's funny, back to what you were saying about saying no to something else or saying yes means saying no. There's a pastor by the name of Andy Stanley from the Atlanta area, and he wrote a book, and I can't remember the name of the book, and I can't remember the entire quote, but he basically says, like, hey, when you choose to do something in life, you are going to cheat something, either work, either family, either God, like for him being a pastor, God. So you're going to cheat something. So you're going to have to prioritize what you don't want to cheat on. Right. And so it's going to be like, he says, for me, it's my faith, it's my family, and then it's my job. And so, my job does not take priority over my family. Right. And now obviously there's sacrifices that are made. But it was the whole point of, I'm not going to say no to my family all the time so I can say yes to everything else.
Correct.
Right? But that's for me, that's that thing, right? It's the saying no part that I have to learn to say no, because it allows me to do things better. Right? Like being a public speaker, like sure, there's some natural side to it that just is naturally as a communicator, but there's the work that goes into what you're going to say, how you're going to say it. Can I be engaging? Can I do this? Can I do that? And so if you're not doing those things, if you're not practicing those things, then you are, I'm not going to be the best communicator that I can be. Right? And so there's some areas where I have to say no to, and I'm learning that more and more.
Let's be honest here, though.
Yeah.
In terms of communications, you definitely own this. You do this very well.
Thank you.
But if ever this blows up and you need a sidekick, I think that I'm okay with the gift of the gab as well. All right.
Hey, we can create something. I would love to start some kind
look at us saying yes to more things.
No, this will be this could be magical. I promise you. But okay, before I go, we've talked basketball.
Yeah.
Now I want to just correct one thing. You said my career ended in high school. It did. Now only because of grades.
Was that the only reason?
Only I was going to play for Vanier. True story. But because my report card was not great enough, I had to say no. But I also said no because I knew I was going to go a different route with my life, and basketball wasn't it. I made the decision at that time that it wasn't.
You made that choice. You're like, no more ball.
I made it. But now, after correcting that, just admit to the audience.
Okay.
I wasn't a bad baller.
No, I thought you were actually. I was always pretty amazed by your game, seeing as though that. I mean, you did stop playing at a younger age. I thought that you were a good shooter. You must have had like a good 6'6" wingspan as well. Like you're built on a taller frame. I mean, you're a little sluggish and a little soft, but you could definitely shoot the ball well. So no, I don't think I never thought that you were a bad ball player. It's just we were just playing in 2 different leagues is all.
Well, it was the same league, but yeah, okay.
Same league, but it's a different league. You know,
I saw my name on the 3-point leaders in our league. I saw it on there. But honestly, I appreciate you coming on to the show.
This was fun. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I definitely love a follow-up conversation. Maybe we could talk some more sports and even dive into, what's happening in the sports world. It'd be even before we press record tonight, we were talking hockey and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Love your take on some things, and it'd be great. But thank you so much for being a part of it. I really appreciate the things you have to share. And I know that those who are listening will take a lot from it. So thank you. To those of you who have been listening, you listened right to the end. I want to thank you so much for tuning into another episode of GillyTalks. I'm going to encourage you to, whether it be Apple Podcasts, whether it be Spotify Podcasts, go on there, find GillyTalks, subscribe so that you don't miss out. Even though you may miss when it first launches, you will not miss out on the next episode. We got more teachers coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I look forward to being able to share those stories with you. So don't forget, at GillyTalks, we want to share your story because your story matters, and we'll see you on our next episode. Thanks so much, Erik.
Hey, my pleasure.